Hi children, welcome back to the new lesson, that is 14th lesson, what we call interdependence. What is that? Interdependence, right? So here, interdependence between whom in the nature, between living and non-living thing. So interdependence in nature. Okay, what is the meaning of interdependence? Inter means in between, dependence means depending upon other. So एक का ऊपर और एक से और एक, what you call communication. How the organisms, either living or non-living, how do they interdependence each other? How do they depend upon each other? That too where? In the nature. So in the nature is nothing but our living place. We know that nature is a big habitat, or we can call it as ecosystem. So in this nature, many organisms like plants, we could able to see plants, animals, we see plants, animals and microbes. Along with these, we could also see air, water, sunlight, somewhat temperature, soil. All these are also present in the nature. So here, when you look at these examples or these things, we can conclude a thing that here in the nature there is air, water, sunlight, temperature and soil. Do they move? Yes, they move. Do they have any life here? No, they don't have any life, right? टेम्परेचर जिंदा रहता है क्या? सनलाइट जिंदा रहते हैं क्या? वाटर, एयर, सॉइल, उसमें कुछ प्राण या जीव है क्या? नहीं, right? So they are not living things. They are not living things. So all these are can be classified as non-living things. These are non-living things. We know very well. Air, water, soil, sunlight, temperature, all these are called non-living things. Right? Means they don't have life. They don't show any metabolic activities like respiration, breathing, right? Excretion. They won't do all these activities. So that we can conclude they are non-living things. Whereas come to plants, animals, microbes. Plants, animals, microbes, these are living things we know very well. Plants, animals, microbes, these are called living things. Why do they are called living things? How can you say that they are living things? Because they grow, they respire. Already we discussed about living and non-living difference, right? They can able to maintain their life metabolism, they can reproduce, they can recreate the new life, so that they are considered as living things. So by this we can say in the nature there are two types of things are there: living things living things like plant, animal and microbes, and non-living things like air, water, sunlight, temperature and soil. You just remember that here plants, animals, microbes, we are calling them as living things. And here the same living things are also called as biotic components of the nature. Living things are also called as living things are also called as biotic components. What are they called? Biotic components. They are also called biotic components. Bio, B-I-O, bio means living things. Components are nothing but materials. So the living things that are present in the nature are called biotic components. Remember, plants, animals, microbes, they are called living things, and these living things also called as biotic components of nature. Biotic components of nature. If anybody asks you what are the biotic components of the nature, then you may reply they include plant, animals, and microbes. These are called biotic components of the nature. Then, if you look into air, water, sunlight, temperature, and soil, what are these called? These are non living things. And non living things are also called as abiotic or abiotic components. They are called abiotic components. Abiotic components. Why they are called abiotic components? Biotic means living things. Abiotic, opposite word. Biotic, opposite word. Abiotic. Abiotic in the sense they don't have life. So abiotic components, they don't have life and we call them as non-living things. Air, water, sunlight, temperature, soil, they are the example for abiotic components. They are called abiotic components of the nature, or otherwise they are non-living things. They are non-living things. So living things called as biotic components of the nature, non-living things are called abiotic components of the nature. Have you understood? Right. So with this we come to know that nature is a combination of abiotic and biotic components. Will you say like that? Can you say, Nana? Right. Definitely we can say that the nature is the combination of abiotic and biotic components. Nature is a combination of abiotic and biotic components. Here, these abiotic component and biotic components, they are interrelated. In the nature, they depend on each other. The living thing depends upon non-living thing, and non-living thing depends upon the living things. So in this lesson, we are going to learn how do they interrelated each other. How do they depend upon each other? We'll learn in this lesson, right? So remember, nature is a combination of living and non-living things. Next, we'll go for how do they relate each other. Let us see, in this lesson we are going to learn how do they interdepend upon each other, right? So here, what are the components of the nature? Biotic components, biotic component, and as well as abiotic component. Biotic and abiotic components together it constitute the nature. Together they form nature, right? So biotic and abiotic components, they combine together to form the nature. And in the nature, all these organisms will show interdepend upon each other. So let us see one by one how do they are interrelated and why we call them as biotic and abiotic interdependence, right? So let us see living things depending upon non-living things. First one, let us see living things depending upon non-living things means biotic components, biotic components, or we can call living things depending upon abiotic things, abiotic things, living things depending upon non-living things, or biotic components depending upon abiotic components. We are saying they are interdependence now. So how do they interdepend on each other, right? So the best example, first example is that all living organisms they breathe. All living organisms they breathe, we know very well. What do they breathe? They breathe, maximum animals or plants, they breathe oxygen. They are aerobic. Maximum, most of the animals are aerobic and they breathe oxygen, right? So where do oxygen is present? Oxygen is present in the air. Oxygen is present in the air. So by this can you say we are breathing air? Air is a non-living thing. It is an abiotic component, right? All living organisms, the breathing can be done by living things, and here air is non-living thing. So the living thing is depending upon non-living thing to survive. Can you guess, without air or oxygen, can we breathe? Can we live? No. No animal can able to live without oxygen or air. So definitely they should depend upon the air. Have you noticed here? The living thing is depending upon the non-living thing. The living thing is depending upon non-living thing. For example, here an animal or plant, whatever it may be, during respiration, they take oxygen. They take oxygen into the lungs and they release carbon dioxide out of the lungs. So it is during breathing or respiration process. They depend upon the air, the non-living thing. Whereas plants, plants they take plants take carbon dioxide from the air. For what? For performing photosynthesis to prepare the food. To prepare food, they consuming carbon dioxide in the air. So plants takes carbon dioxide. Plant is a living thing, carbon dioxide is a non-living thing. Even the living thing is depending upon non-living. Have you understood now? Right? So the plants takes carbon dioxide and it prepares the food. Right? So this food is provided to other animals, right? So if there is no air, then there is no food. There is no food. When there is no food, we are unable to survive. Definitely, to get the energy we have to take the food. When there is no air, there is no carbon dioxide. When there is no carbon dioxide, there is no photosynthesis, there is no food. So that all the animals they die when there is no food, right? So that's why biotic and abiotic components, they are interdependent each other in the nature. This is a simple example that explains us the living things depends upon the non-living things. We'll learn more about this in further classes now. I hope you understood today's class. We'll meet in the next class. Thank you, Nana.